Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today we're going to be painting Ghost Scared by Bats, and I'm going to be sipping on a little Merlot. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for the materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. You could certainly switch up the size if you're painting along with me, but that's what I'm going to be using. I'll be using acrylic paint today. The colors are titanium white, burnt umber, which I'll call brown, Mars black, chrome orange, and deep yellow. And of course you can switch up those colors, but that's what I'm going to be using. For my tools today, I have a bunch of tools that I'm using. I'm going to be using a piece of string. This is about an inch or 12 inches long. You can certainly have it a little bit longer or shorter, but that's one of my tools. I'm also using a standard number 2 pencil. And then I have 3 brushes that I'm using today. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 7 round brush and a number 2 round brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up a little bit if you'd like. If you're painting along with me, you're gonna probably want a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I do have a couple of additional resources for you that can help you through this painting process. The first thing that I have is a link where you could purchase this entire paint kit that I'm using, including the piece of string. So that's down there for you. And there's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're drawing an outline for our moon. So we're going to be using our pencil and our string. But first we're going to use our pencil and we're going to make a couple of dots on our canvas. So what I'd like you to do is we're going to come about halfway from left to right and come down maybe about 1.5 inches. Make yourself a little bit of a mark. Then what you're going to do is you're going to come down the left-hand side about 1/3 of the way. And to know how far that is, if you were to kind of eyeball your halfway point and then your quarter way point, it's somewhere in the middle of those two. And then just come over maybe about 2 inches and make yourself a mark. And you're going to do the same thing on the right-hand side. So you'll come down about 1/3 of the way in about 2, oops, just hit my elbow, in about 1.5 inches to 2 inches, make yourself a mark. Then what you can do is just come right into the middle from those two. You should be lined up with that one on the top. Make yourself another little marker. And then we got one more marker to make, and it's going to be directly below this, about 1/3 of the way up your canvas. So again, if this is about my halfway point, this is about my quarter way point, it's between those two. So somewhere about here. So now we've got 4 points, we've got our center, we're going to use our pencil and our piece of string to draw ourselves a circle. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to make a little loop on the end of my string. I'm going to stick my pencil in it like this. I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight and it's close to the edge of my pencil. You don't want it far over like this because that's going to make you a little bit wobbly. So you want it pretty close to the tip of your pencil. And then what you're going to do is you're going to hold, you can bring that pencil to one of your markers and then kind of hold it in the center of where you've made that center mark. Something like this and like this. And now what you're going to do is you're just going to kind of go like this, and you're going to get it to meet or come close to your points. If you've got to readjust, this just helps you to keep it in a circular motion as opposed to making it too square. So something like that. It's easier to do if I'm not pointing at the my camera. Oh, I'm gonna go ambidextrous here. Something like this, and then meet my other mark. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but at least this gets us in the general vicinity of a circle. And then we are going to be using our large brush for the next step. So you can put your pencil and your string down, grab your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna do the first layer of our background or our sky. I'm gonna be using my large brush. I'm gonna be using black, brown, and yellow. And how I'm gonna do this, I want it really dark at the bottom and along my edges. And as it gets towards that moon, I'm gonna have it a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna start with black and brown on my brush at the same time. And as I'm painting this, I'm gonna keep it in a circular brush stroke, so that way it gives, as we add the glow into the sky later, it's going to add this nice illusion of a circular kind of glow. You could certainly paint it in any different way that you want to, but I'm going to be doing these circular brush strokes to make it look like it's going around the moon. And I'm using a good amount of paint, so I have a nice even kind of brush stroke. I do know that we're going to be doing a second layer on this background and on this sky, so I'm really not terribly concerned about it being perfect on this step. Still just using black and brown right now, because I know I'm going to be doing a second layer, which is going to smooth out any bits of brush strokes that I might not like. So don't worry if you've got streaks going through it at this point. Right now I'm gonna just pick up brown. I'm not picking up any more black at this point, and it's gonna start to get a little bit lighter as it goes towards that moon. And again, I am using a good amount of paint so I can get these long strokes, but if yours ends up with these little, what I refer to as cut marks, don't worry about it. We will get rid of those on the second go around. And I am bringing this brown all the way to my moon. And then before I call it quits on this step, I'm going to put a layer of yellow inclusive of that brown right next to the moon. So I'm just bringing this right next to the moon. And you don't have to worry about your edges of the moon being perfect either, because we're going to have soft edges around the moon, which means they're not going to be super clean, and it'll be okay if you have it on the foggier side, or if you bump into the interior of your moon a little bit. That's almost going to make it look more natural, because we're going to have those soft edges to it. So I'm almost done here. I am going to pick up a little bit of yellow here. So I'm not washing my brush, I'm just picking up some yellow, and this is going to start what we're going to call the glow around our moon. And again, we're going to be doing another layer around this moon in a little bit. So if it's not perfect, no worries. I'm just getting this little bit finished up here. And we are going to use the same brush for the next step. So once you've got this first layer on your sky, you can wash and dry this big brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we are doing the first layer of our moon. We're going to be using this large bristle brush, and the colors that I'm going to be using are brown, yellow, and white. And how I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be applying my paint with a circular fashion, because I want to have some light spots and some dark spots to my moon, so it looks all nice and spooky and Halloweeny and, you know, middle of October, November kind of moon where it's nice and kind of darkish. My goal here, as I'm making my light spots and my dark spots, I do want it to be a little bit darker around the edge, so that's where I'm going to be bringing in a little bit more brown. But again, don't worry too much about your edges being perfect, because we have another step that's gonna help them get nice and smooth and soft. So I'm starting with white and a little bit of yellow on my brush. Maybe a little bit more yellow than that so you can actually see it. And I'm going to just kind of, in a carefree kind of fashion, just kind of float around my moon, so to speak. I want to have some light spots and some dark spots. I just picked up some brown. So I'm going to actually be almost alternating these three colors on my brush. Every time I go to pick up paint, maybe one time I'm going to pick up white, maybe the next time I'm going to pick up brown, maybe the next time I'm going to pick up yellow. So that way I end up with this variety of colors throughout the moon. The only time that I'm not going to be doing the circular type brush stroke is when I get towards the edge. I will a little bit, but I'm also going to be doing almost like a smoother transition around that edge, so it almost looks like it's shadowed and it's starting to blend with the surrounding sky. So again, it's not necessary for it to be perfect in this step, but if you can start that transition from the circles to a smoother edge, that's gonna help you in the long run. But again, if you don't get it 100%, no worries. And again, I'm just gonna kind of creep my way around this moon, and as I'm doing it, I'm just kind of in my little, you know, Halloween head thinking about all the ghosts and the goblins that can be making their noises this time of year, and maybe some wolves are howling at the moon, or maybe there's, I don't know, we're gonna have some bats on our painting. So I don't know what noises bats make. Maybe they make, oh, I think they make little squealing noises, but I'm not going to attempt to make the noise because I'm not very confident what exactly that noise is. And then I'm going to try and get my top of the moon a little bit lighter than the bottom. But again, if I don't accomplish that on this step, I'm not really terribly worried about it because I've got that second step that I can use to make it a little bit better. So I'm picking up a little bit more brown towards those edges. You don't really need to use a ton of paint on this step. I don't use a lot of paint on my brush, so that way I can kind of switch colors on the fly, and my brush isn't ever overloaded too much, and the colors will dry nice and quickly for me. So that way if I do something I don't like, I can just say, oh, okay, well, it'll dry in a second and I'll just paint over it. So just know that you certainly can adjust these colors as you go. And I'm not even really concerned terribly if my pencil mark is fully covered at this point, because I know I'm going to do that second layer on the sky and the moon also, so that's not a big concern to me at all either. So that's going to conclude my first layer of my moon. We are going to use this same brush for the next step, so you can just kind of wash it and dry it and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are doing the second layer on our sky. We are going to be using our large bristle brush, and the colors that we're using are black, brown, and yellow. So I do want to forewarn you before you go on to this step that you do want to make sure that your sky is dry. So you could either just take a longer break if you'd like to, or you could sit here and blow on it. That might take you a while though. Or you could just kind of pick up a blow dryer and blow dry it. So whatever method you want, or maybe yours is already dry. So if it is, great. So we're in essence just doing the same thing that we did on the first time. And this time we're just making sure that we have a nice second layer. We'll get it to blend in a little bit more around the moon. So I'm going to start with my black and brown down at the bottom. And don't be terribly concerned if, oh my God, I have brown here, so you have to put exactly brown right on that one. This is definitely okay to overlap. That's going to make it look a little bit more soft and more dreamy like, and make it, the colors of the acrylic are usually, when we're in these type of darker tones, they might be a little bit translucent, so you might get this really cool layering effect. If you have black or brown on top of black, you might be able to see a little bit of those tones of the black underneath it. But my primary goal here is just to make it look nice and smooth. So I want to have a nice brush stroke that I can't really detect unpainted canvas, I want to make sure that I've painted the whole canvas nice and evenly throughout the whole sky. I'm really going for a nice, you know, finished look on this. So I'm going up towards these top corners because I know I want it the darkest around the edges, so I want to stay true to that. So again, I'm still just using a little bit of black and brown. The black can really easily take over, so if yours is really too black for you, you could, in essence, either wipe your brush off on your paper towel, and if you can't get enough black off at that point, you could certainly wash and dry your brush, because sometimes that black, man, it can be really powerful, and you want brown, but yet you still have black on your brush and it's not coming up. So just know it's all right to wash your brush. I am a very lazy brush washer, so I don't wash my brush often, but I also am comfortable with the quantity of paint that I want to use, so I don't run into that issue too often of my brush being overloaded with a color that is not working for me, or I can't get off of my brush, or is overpowering my brush. So right now I'm just picking up brown as I'm moving closer towards my moon, and then I'm going to start to pick up, yeah, that's looking good. I'm going to start to pick up some yellow on my brush without washing it. So now it's going to really start to look nice and glowy around the edges of my moon. And I am going to consciously bump into the edge of my moon as I'm doing this. And I know that as this starts to dry, it will get a little bit darker because of the colors that it's on top of. But don't be concerned if one area is lighter than the other, if one has a bit more glow on it than another. If it's too bright for you, just bring some brown back into it. And I do also want to kind of forewarn you that sometimes when you're using yellow and brown together, you might get almost like a green type look. That's all right. Just go with it. It's going to look super cool if it's a little green or a little brown or a little yellow. Just let happen what's going to happen. This is just meant to be a really cool, nice dark moon. And again, I am consciously bumping into the edge of that moon a little bit. Gotta stand on my tippy toes. There's a little bit of a glare when I work with these dark colors, so I have to kind of sit at or stand at a different angle so I can make sure that I'm getting everything that I want to get. So again, I'm just right now still using a kind of a combination of the yellow and the brown. And you know, if you distort the circle of your moon a little bit, it's okay. Maybe we'll hide that part with a bat or part of the top of your ghost, or, you know, don't worry if it's not perfect. And then we're going to use this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this beautiful second layer on your sky, you can wash and dry this big brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're doing the second layer on our moon. I'm gonna be using my large paintbrush, and the colors I'm using are the same that I used the first time, which are brown, yellow, and white. But feel free to make your moon whatever color you want. Maybe you want yours more on the grayer side. You could use black and white in that case, or maybe you wanna go for the ever elusive blue moon, because there's a blue moon. I know there's a song about it too. I'm definitely not going to sing it for you, but I know that there's a song about it. So you can tweak this and make it kind of whatever colors that you'd like. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to just repeat what I did the first time, but when I get towards those edges, I am definitely going to make sure that they blend in a little bit more with my sky. So I'm going white and yellow is where I'm starting. And again, you don't have to have the same colors exactly on the same colors that it was the first time. I'm really just doing another layer. I do want to make sure that I hide my little pencil mark that I made initially. We don't want people to see my little pencil mark. So again, this can be really intense in color or really subtle, whatever works for you. I am going to make that top part probably the lightest, just to, for me, that's where it feels like it should be the lightest. But again, you can really just have fun with this. I'm not using a ton of paint at this point. I really am just going for a nice soft layer on top of what I already had. And then as I work my way towards those edges, I'm gonna kind of stay away from them a little bit at the moment while I work on this interior, and then I'm gonna go and finish that exterior kind of in almost like one fell swoop. But you'll see how I'm gonna do it. So again, I'm still just using white, yellow, maybe a little bit of brown, getting these colors to really just kind of meld together and look like they, you know, it's off in the distance, out of focus kind of interpretation of the craters on the moon. So you just have as much fun as you would like doing this second layer. And maybe your first layer was so awesome that you were cool with it and you don't want to do too much on this second layer. So for me, I'm a layering queen. I love to layer. I think that to me it really just adds that extra softness or detail that I can't typically get on a single layer. So I really like adding these dimensions. It adds more dimension for me visually. So, but you can certainly have fun with yours and get it to do whatever visual effects that you want it to do. I'm getting mine to go a little bit lighter up at the top, so I'm going to use a little bit more white as I come towards this top area. And you can see I'm layering. I'm just putting color on top of other color, and I'm just kind of working it in this mostly circular type fashion. And then as I'm kind of finished, I like my center here. Now's when I want to get those edges to work with the sky. So I'm going to be picking up brown, yellow, and white. Maybe just not too much white, more brown and yellow. But this is where I'm going to really just kind of make sure that they work together. Just kind of, even if you paint a little bit into that sky, it's okay. I want mine to be really soft and almost, I don't want to say disappear around those edges, but I definitely want these two to look like they not belong together, but are working together in the atmosphere. So you might have yours a little bit, more pronounced than mine. You might have yours more subtle than mine. It's going to be a visual preference, but if you can get it to be a little bit on the softer side, that's going to help to tell the story of that glow around it. If it's a real firm line around the moon, it might not tell the same story of the glow that we've already cast upon the sky. So you can certainly, just kind of bend it and tweak it as much as you want. I'm kind of overlapping the colors a little bit from the sky into the moon, and I'm just going to kind of work my way around these edges and tweak it as I want to. I got this little area up at the top to contend with. So I'm just put some brown and yellow, and it's not really much of a trick, but I definitely keep that paint moving as it's wet. That's how I get these to blend in together. And then I'm going to just lightly kind of brush over the sky a little bit, and that's going to help to get these colors to work together. I think I want a little bit more lightness over here. I made that a little bit too dark for my taste. So just adding a touch more lightness over there, and you can just kind of keep tweaking it until you've got that perfect impression of a glowing moon. And then we are going to be switching brushes to our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your beautiful glowing moon on here, you can put this large brush away in your water cup, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're doing the first layer of our pumpkin. I'm gonna be using my medium brush, and I'm gonna be using just orange paint. I'm gonna put a couple of markers so I have it as big as I want to. You can certainly have yours whatever size, shape, or color you want, because pumpkins do come in a wide variety. But I want mine to be pretty big, so I'm gonna give myself a couple of markers to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I would say about a quarter of the way from the left-hand side, and it's maybe a little bit higher than my halfway point. So if this is my halfway point, maybe a little bit higher than that. It's going to be like the top of my pumpkin. And then at the bottom of my moon, if this was the center of my canvas, I'm going to come over to the right a little bit and up, maybe about a half of an inch to an inch, somewhere around there. I'm going to come directly down from this marker, and maybe this is about a quarter of the way up my canvas. So I'm going to make myself another marker in through there. And then maybe about, come straight over from here and stop when you're about 1.5 inches away from the edge of your canvas. So I know that I want mine to kind of have almost like a flat bottom to it. So I'm going to start with kind of a flat bottom to it, and then I'll connect these edges. So I'm going to start at this line here. I don't want it to come all the way over to this marker, but definitely, pretty darn close. Same thing with this one in through here. And now I can just kind of connect the other dots. And again, don't be concerned if this is of a perfect oval or a non, it's okay. We're going to be putting all kinds of fun stuff around it to make it look more like a pumpkin. So, just don't have any kind of anxiety as to the perfect shape of this. And then I'm just going to color it in orange. And if your paint underneath is wet, just paint right through it. It's okay if you have brown streaking through it. It's okay if you have white streaking through it. Whatever happens is totally fine, because again, this is just going to be our base coat for it. I am painting it kind of in the direction of the of my pumpkin stripes, but that's really not terribly necessary. You can paint it really in any direction. This just helps my brain to form the pumpkin as I'm developing it. So you can certainly, if you're doing yours horizontal, that's okay. And it's all right if you can see the colors underneath it from your moon or from your background. That's totally fine, because again, this is just the first layer. I do want to put some kind of a lid on it too. So I know that we're going to have a black hole in through here, so I want my lid to kind of look like it belongs. So I'm just going to kind of make a little bit of a bump in through here, and I want it to look like it's open a little bit. So I'm going to just make myself a diagonal line in through here. I don't want it to go farther than the edge of my pumpkin, because then it wouldn't make sense. So I'm just making it as wide as what I think the opening of the hole is going to be. And then what I'll do is I will put this like little bumpy kind of top to it. So you can, make yours as bumpy or as non-bumpy as you want. And then I'm just going to color it in orange. And then we're going to use, let's see, what are we going to use? We're going to use our big brush for the next step. So once you've got your base coat of your pumpkin, you can put this medium brush away in your water cup, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we are painting the first layer of our ghost, which I'm super excited about because they all come out so different, so it's really fun to do this particular type of step. So I'm gonna be using my large bristle brush, and I'm gonna be using white paint. When you're doing this, if you don't have a really firm brush or if your white paint is really thick, what I do suggest doing is adding maybe a touch of water to your white paint. So you can just take a little bit on your brush, and what you'll do is thin out the paint just a little bit, because you don't want a lot of paint on your brush and you want to be able to keep moving it as it's drying. So if you need to, stick a little bit of water in it. We're going to start in kind of a safe area. We'll do one of his sleeves first, so that way you can kind of get the hang of it, and then if you need to make any adjustments to your paint or to your brush, you can do so. So I'm gonna, to ensure that I don't have too much paint on my brush, I am going to wipe it off on my paper towel. I'm gonna start with like the arms, and then we'll work our way from there. So I'm gonna have my first sleeve of my arm starting right about here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do just this little kind of curved line that's maybe about, I don't know, 1.5 to 2 inches, and the edge of the fabric is to the left, so that's the way that I'm pushing the paint. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to give myself a little bit of a curved line that's going to come all the way up into my moon a little bit, maybe a little arcing area over there, and this is going to be the edge of my fabric. And then what I do is I'm just going to take my brush Make sure I don't have too much paint. If you do, just wipe it off on your paper towel. And I'm gonna rub it into the canvas until it's really just dry and see-through. So you can see as I'm going into this area up above where I have less paint, it's really becoming nice and translucent. And then you can just push the brighter parts towards the edges of that, of the fabric, and that's going to make it look a little bit more realistic. You could always add a touch more water onto your brush if you need it to be a little bit more see-through. And as you're doing this, you can really just keep manipulating the see-throughness with a little bit of water until you've got it in the desired translucency that you want. And I'm gonna I like that as the sleeve, so I'm gonna just work my way right over here to the hand. So I've got a little hand underneath my pumpkin, and it's gonna come right into my sleeve area like that. And I do know we're gonna be doing a second step to the ghost, so I am not going to be doing too much other than just kind of putting this fabric in place, and plus he's see-through, so we really don't have to do a lot anyways. And again, the trick is just not a lot of paint on your brush. So I'm going to do the front part of his ghost dress. I don't know what they wear. I don't know what it's called. I don't know. I don't know if it's, I don't know, whatever, his ghost covering, his ghost clothes. So I'm going to start a little bit in from the hand like this, and then I'm just going to give it a big, like a swooping kind of motion. I want this to be a little bit lighter in through here, so I just picked up a little bit more white, so this way it translates as maybe this is the brighter part. It's being illuminated maybe by the moon or something. And I'm not putting too much paint near the edges of the other objects, so you can really see the difference between them. And I'll work on this clothing piece a little bit more in a minute, but I want to kind of get the rest of the outline of the ghost before I finalize all of my fabric. So I'm adding a touch more of my white onto my brush. I'm going to give him the arm on the other side. So this is going to come up, you know, maybe somewhere in this vicinity. And I want it to look like he's got maybe a little shoulder, so I'm going to give a little shoulder in through there. And you can have it come to here or maybe a little bit further. Your ghost can be whatever kind of shape you want your ghost to be. And then again, I'm wiping my brush off on my paper towel and then just kind of rubbing this paint into the other area. So that way it's brighter on the edge and just kind of fades into a really translucent kind of paint. If you bump into your pumpkin like I did, don't worry about it. We got so much more to do on our pumpkin, so that's all right if you do that. So now I'm going to put so if this is kind of the edge of his sleeve and through here, I want to put the rest of this arm that is on our side of the ghost. So I'm going to have his head somewhere in this vicinity. I want it to maybe go overlapping the moon a little bit, and then maybe I'll have his other shoulder. You want it kind of similar in height to here, but it could certainly come up a little bit. So I'm going to start it maybe somewhere in through here. It's going to drop a little bit here, and then I got to get it to ripple into his the front part of his sleeve a little bit. So I think I'm just going to do a couple of little swoops like that. Make sure I don't have too much paint on my brush, and then I'm just going to sit here and dry brush it in so it's nice and see-through. If you need to add a little bit of water to your brush to make sure that you can get it to blend in a little bit, feel free to do so. And I do know that when you have water mixed in with your white paint, it will look a little bit whiter when it's wet, and it will dry a little bit darker. So just know that it will, if you are using a little bit of water, that might happen. So just be prepared for it. Now I'm going to put his head on here. So I want this to kind of look like it's a draping kind of piece of fabric or something. So I'm going to have a little bit of of a edge coming in through here. And you could have a big bubble head. You could have it, you know, looking like he's got a hat underneath, or, you know, just have fun with it. I want mine to kind of look like he's like, oh no, like it's maybe leaning back a little bit, like he's trying to keep his head away from the bats that are coming in here. So you just really shape this whatever way that you want to. And again, you can probably hear that my brush is really dry at this point. And again, that's how I'm getting it to be nice and translucent like this. So you just have as much, you know, fun through this process as you want. You can see mine's a little bit bumpy in through there. It's a little bit bumpy on the top of the head. It's all part of, you know, whatever's underneath there. We don't know. We don't know what's underneath there. It could be, I don't know. I can't even imagine what, well, I guess maybe nothing, right? Because ghosts are see-through. So this is just the covering that he's got on him. So I don't know, so the bats can see him coming or something? I don't know. And then I'm gonna put some, I need the rest of his clothing on here. So I'm gonna start maybe somewhere in through here. And I'm gonna have this just really kind of trailing off into the night. And I'm gonna put some almost like ripples or ripples in the fabric, something like this. And then if you've gone too light, just add a little bit of water to your brush, and that's gonna help you to wipe out, or you could even, watch this magic, you could even pull some of the paint off if you want it to be darker or more see-through in one area. I'm digging that. I was gonna work on it a little bit more, but I think I'm digging that a lot. So once you've got your ghost on here, you can, what are we gonna do next? We're gonna be using our medium brush for the next step. So you can put the large brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we are doing the shadowy areas of our pumpkin. We're gonna use the medium brush, and we're gonna be using black and brown. And how I'm gonna start this is I'm gonna start with my my lid, and I'm gonna just kind of make myself an edge on my lid, and I'm gonna be using the black and the brown for the underneath parts of these two particular objects, as well as the interior of the pumpkin, as well as the grooves in the pumpkin. So I'm gonna start with brown and black on my brush, and I'm gonna give myself an edge to the lid of it. So you can really certainly reshape this as much as you want to from your original line if you needed to. And then once I've got my edge on there, I'm gonna decide where I'm gonna have my stem coming out. So I think I'm gonna have my stem somewhere in this vicinity, and that's where all of my grooves are gonna be grooving from. Is that center area. So I'm gonna have one maybe in through here, and then maybe one over here, and you could really pick or have as many grooves as you want, totally up to you, but you just want them to kind of make sense. And then once I've got those grooves on there, I just kind of get these lines to be not solid, so, or not clean around the edges. I don't want them to be clean edges, so I kind of move my brush so the edges are softer and have almost blend in a little bit with the surrounding orange. That's going to help to make it look more three-dimensional as opposed to just a straight perfect line. And you can see that my lines are kind of a little wonky. They're not perfect. I don't want them to be. Especially since it's being held by a ghost. I don't need it to be perfect. I'm gonna add my interior area here. So this has got to kind of make sense with the size of my lid. I want to keep a little bit of an orange edge around the side. Right now I have black and brown on my brush. So I'm gonna start this over here, And then when I go to do the lip in through here, I do want it to be kind of bumpy. And if you don't line, you're not going to line the bumps up exactly with these ridges that you have, but I'll show you a trick in when we get to do the grooves down here. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4 little grooves, grooves. So I want to have the same number in through here, so it makes it look like it belongs. So I don't need this to be super open, because I know that that's not a really big lid that I have. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I've got maybe one here. I'll pick maybe one here. Maybe this one's going to be over here, and then maybe I've got another one there. So now that I've got something that's kind of lined up, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of make these little almost curved. And they don't have to be, you know, super duper curvy, just something that again is kind of telling the story of that lid that is up above it. And then I'm just going to kind of do that. I'm going to put some brown on my brush. I haven't washed my brush yet. I'm going to have this side a little bit lighter than down here. So it almost looks like it's being lit up a little bit, or it just looks like the orange is in the shadows. And then I'll put more black down on the bottom side. So that way it just gives it a little extra dimension to it. So right now I'm just picking up black paint on my brush, and this will give me more of it being shadowed, deep dark, or on this, you know, on this bottom side of the interior of it. And then once I've got this nice and done, I do want to make sure that this kind of blends in a little bit. So just wiggling my brush a little bit here. Wiggle it just a little bit. There's that song. Wiggle it just a little bit. I want to see you wiggle it. And then I'm going to put my grooves in my pumpkin. So again, these are just going to kind of line up, and I want them to be brown and black is what I've got. Brown and black, something like this. Go all the way down to the bottom. And I'm not making them, you know, super big or really clean lines right now. I will take care of giving them a little bit of dimension in a minute here. But now that I've got that on there, I'm going to put myself a really dark shadow at the bottom. So again, black and brown. And the shadow can creep up the edges a little bit of the bottom of your pumpkin, and it can be lumpy and bumpy. It doesn't need to be a straight line at this point. This is, you know, time where you can certainly manipulate that shape. And then I'm going to take my brush and just, like I did on that on the cover, I'm going to mess up my lines. So this way, again, I've got more of a natural kind of shadow within these grooves, as opposed to a firm, handmade, super perfect line. So I'm just kind of wiggling my brush, and if your paint is already dry, just stick a little bit more brown paint on your brush. You could even, I suppose, put a little bit of orange paint if you're not able to get your lines to blend in. And even if you can't blend them in all the way, don't worry about it, because we got another step that we're going to be doing on our pumpkin that will help to make it look a little bit more realistic. And then we are going to be switching brushes to our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your shadows on your pumpkin, you can put this medium brush away in your water cup, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we are painting our ghost face. So I'm gonna use my small brush, and I'm gonna be using mostly brown. I might use a little bit of white too, just around the edges. And if your painting's really dark, I suppose you could use some black too, but I'm gonna use my brown and a little white. I'm using my small brush, and I really want him to look kind of scared, like he's being scared by the bats that are coming out of his pumpkin. So he's like, oh no, with his head back, and he's got his mouth open. So I'm gonna have fun with mine. I'm gonna put just a little bit of brown on my brush. I can always add more paint, but I'm just gonna be very cautious to start, and then if I want to add more paint, I will. I want him to kind of be looking this way, so I'm gonna have my his right eye, but on the left side of the canvas, is going to be a little bit smaller than the right one. And I'm going to put it maybe about an inch or a half of an inch away from the edge of the canvas. I'm going to put it kind of higher. It doesn't have to be perfectly round. It can be oval, it can be triangle, it can, I think ghost eyes can come in lots of different shapes. So that's my first one. My second one is going to go a little bit to the right of it, and it's going to be maybe a little bit bigger, and maybe it's, I don't know, got a little bit different of a shape. Who knows? I do know that when I might have been a ghost once or twice as a Halloween costume, and we used to cut the holes out of the sheets for our eyes, and they never were the same. So maybe one of yours is circle, maybe one's a little triangle. You decide as to what shapes you want yours to be. And then the mouth is going to be super open. I've got it, gonna have it like wider at the top, and then like he's like, oh no, what's coming out of my pumpkin? So I'm gonna just have it maybe smaller at the bottom, and he's really not wanting these bats to come out, to escape out of his cool pumpkin in through here. And now that I've got it on there, I think I'm gonna put just a little bit of white paint around the edge that the moon is at, just so it gives it a little bit more dimension on it. So I just wiped my brush off on my paper towel and just almost like outlining that left-hand side to give it a little bit more highlight. And I suppose you could put eyebrows. You could really have as much fun as you want with this. And then we're going to use the same brush for the next step. So once you get your cute ghost face on there, you can wash and dry that small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to do for the next step is I am finishing my little ghost hand and a little bit of a three-dimensional element to his clothing underneath here. So I'm using my small brush, and I'm going to be using mostly brown paint, but I might need a little bit of black or a little bit of white just to tweak it in the direction that I want. So I just started with brown paint, and I really just want to make sure that this is dark enough underneath here. Yeah, I think I'm going to use a touch of black too. So just a teeny tiny bit of black. Make sure that it really reads as a shadow underneath here. I want to make sure that we have some good three-dimensional elements in through even our ghost, who is so see-through and translucent. And then I want a piece of his clothing, his ghost sheet underneath here. So I'm going to just almost make an extra dark area in through here. And then if that's not enough for you, you can just put a tiny bit of white on your brush to give this little sleeve an edge in through there. So you can, again, just tweak this until you've got those extra little little details in there. Sometimes these little details are the funnest part, and they really just make the whole thing come to life. And if you felt that you needed a little more highlight or whatever the case may be, that would be the time to do it, or a little shadow underneath the pumpkin right in through here on his, you know, ghostly dress or whatever. You just have fun with these shadows. And then we're going to use the same brush for the next step. So once you've got these cool shadows underneath your pumpkin on top of your ghost's arms and stuff, you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're painting our pumpkin stem. I'm gonna use my small brush. I'm gonna be using mostly brown, but I'll use a little bit of black too. And when I'm painting this, in my head, I'm thinking about all the crazy pumpkin stem styles that there is. There's short ones, there's long ones, there's green ones, there's brown ones, there's yellow ones, there's ones with wriggly ones with all these little spiny, stemmy things coming out. So use your imagination, have fun. I'm gonna start with just some brown on my brush, and I'm almost gonna think of this as, like, for me, I'm gonna make it like almost like a tree without leaves on it. So that's how I'm thinking of it. I'm gonna have it kind of wider at the base, and then I'm gonna have mine kind of wriggling out the side. I'm gonna have it the widest when it hits the the pumpkin in through there. Maybe a touch of black on my brush. I want it to make it look like it's growing out of the pumpkin. So you might need a little bit of black just to get these almost, we can call it the root system if you're using your tree imagination like I am. And then as I go to build it up, I'm gonna start to make some little branches coming out of it. I'm gonna have mine pretty big. Mine's gonna come, you know, all the way over here, and you can have yours again as small or as big as you want. I brace myself, that's why sometimes my hand is gonna get in the way. You can have it wide, you can have it skinny. There's little ones that have squiggle kind of vegetation stuff that comes off of it. So really have fun with it. Make it as, you know, energetic and put as much movement into it as you want. I'm going to have a couple more little pieces coming off of here. And these little pieces can cross over one another. Just have fun. Maybe it goes off past your moon. Just have fun with it. I'm digging that. I think that's going to be good for me. And then let's see, what are we going to do? We're going to use our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your cool stem on here, you can put your small brush away, get out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to do for the next step is I'm doing my second layer of the pumpkin. I'm going to be using my medium brush, and I'm going to be using brown, orange, yellow, and white. I don't think I'm going to go into the black, but if I do, I'll let you know. So what I'm in essence going to be doing is building the center areas into a lighter tone. We are going to have another step where we're going to put like a final highlight on it. So don't be terribly concerned if you don't have enough of a bend or enough shape on it at this point. But I'm not going to use a ton of paint. I'm going to start with some orange and yellow, and really what I'm going to do is I'm just kind of putting a second layer in those more orangey sections. So orange and yellow is really where I'm starting with this, just getting another layer on here. You can use a lot of paint or a little bit of paint. The more paint you use, obviously the longer it's going to take to dry. So I'm probably going to use a little bit thinner of a layer. I know I used a lot here, but I'm probably going to just steal paint from that section as I'm working my way around. I love to layer, and if you ever watch some of my other tutorials, layering to me just adds more dimension, and it adds more texture, and it adds more movement and all kinds of good stuff. So that's why I tend to do these type of things in multiple steps, so that way I can build it in layers. And you can already see as I'm working my way towards these little grooves that it's starting to blend much better and tell a really good story. You can overlap this. I haven't started to use white yet because I want these colors to still be a little translucent, and I know that my orange and my yellow are see-through. So because they're see-through, I'm able to overlap them in those grooves, and that's what's going to really give me a great transition from the dark shadowy area to the lighter area, which is what we will be in essence building in a few minutes. But right now I'm just kind of putting this second layer on with yellow and orange. I will bring some brown and some white in a minute, but right now I'm just kind of adding the yellow and the orange to start this step. And again, I'm putting it on. Some areas are thicker than others, but this is really just giving me this starting point for this step. And then once I've got it all on here, I will start to, I'll use the yellow and orange with a little bit of brown to make sure that I have transitioned it well in those grooves. So yellow, orange, and brown is what's on my brush right now. That was a little bit too much yellow for my liking. So I just wiped off a little bit, and I'm just making sure that I've got it transitioning into these grooves really nice and well. And then in a second I will start to add a little bit of white to start the interior of these sections, making sure that they've got a little bit of lightness on them. But I do want to make sure that this shadowy area and these grooves work. I don't want it to look too static and like it's just one dark line next to a light line. And I can work this little area up top where it's the lip that kind of folds into the pumpkin itself, because that would have a little bit of a shadow on it. It would be a little bit darker around that edge. And then making sure this little edge over here is taken care of. Put a little bit of my brown and orange and yellow mixture up here just to make sure those all are talking nicely together. And now I'm going to pick up a little orange, yellow, and white. And this is where I'm going to start that a little bit of the highlighting process without going too overboard. This is really just making sure that I've got that a little bit of that lightness started for the final highlight of the pumpkin here. So just a tiny bit of white with my orange and my yellow is helping me to start this nice, almost a solid kind of base for them. And you can just kind of add it. I'm doing mine a little bit higher than the center. If this was kind of the center of the pumpkin, I'm going a little bit higher as the lightest area. I'm going to put a little bit in through here, here, and you can see how it's all just starting to really read as a nice three-dimensional pumpkin here. And you know, like I said, I love to layer. I could sit here and put 962 layers on this thing, but we're not gonna put that many. We'll probably only put one more and then we'll call it. But you could certainly keep tweaking this and having as much fun getting these sections of colors to talk to each other and make sure that they make sense with one another. And then let's see, what are we gonna do? We're gonna use our small brush for the next step. So once you've got a nice second layer on these orange, or the orange sections of your pumpkin, you can put this brush away in your water cup. You can take out your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we are painting our bats. So I'm gonna be using my small brush, and I'm gonna be using brown and black paint. I'm gonna start with just brown, and I'm gonna put them in place, and then I will add little black accents to them. So when you're doing this, obviously I'm using a pretty small brush. You could use a smaller brush if you wanted to. If you want to be a little bit more cautious, you can always add a little bit of water to your paint, and that way it's going to be nice and translucent. So if you do make something that you don't like, you can always quickly erase it or go over it. But you know, just have fun with this. You can have big, huge bats. You can have imaginary bats that are not necessarily the authentic type shape. But I'm gonna have mine kind of flying out of my pumpkin, which is precisely why my ghost looks a little terrified. So I'm gonna have one kind of coming out this way. I'll have another one somewhere in through here, and then I'm gonna have a bigger one up in through here. So again, you could have yours bigger or smaller, or you know, whatever you want to do. So I'm gonna again start with brown. I'm gonna do the most typical shape one first, and it's also gonna be the largest one. It'll be up in this vicinity. So how I'm going to start this is I'm going to start it with the body. So the body of a bat is pretty short, and it's got a pretty big head. So really what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with a couple of bat ears like that. And then I'm going to bring the body, I'm going at like a little bit of a diagonal kind of direction, something like that, where it's a little bit pointier at the tail side of it. And then I'm going to make myself some huge wings. So I've got Oh, and another tip, I don't press hard when I'm doing this, so that way I have these more slender lines, but if you end up pressing hard, it's all right. Life's gonna go on. So here we go. I'm gonna have, my bat wings are gonna be pretty darn big. So I'm gonna make myself kind of a curved line from about here to right behind my bat ear, something like that. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side too, just so I can kind of keep myself in check. So I'm going to do this one maybe something like this. And again, yours could be at a different angle than mine, whatever you want. And then I'm going to put the top part or the top of the end part of the wing, and it's going to curve in the opposite direction, and it's going to be a little bit shorter than that one. So something like that, and I'll do the same thing on this side. So it's curved something like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a whole bunch of maybe 3 inward arcing lines that are going to end up meeting the body. So you can really start at the body if you want to. So maybe 1, 2, maybe I should have 3 or 4. I'm gonna have one more. I was only planning on 3, but I added another one on the fly. So I'm gonna have to have the same number on the other side too. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3. I feel like the count from Sesame Street right now. 1, 2. So something like that. And then you can just paint them in. So I'm gonna paint it in with my brown paint. And then I will go ahead and make another bat. So I'm just painting a solid color with the, I think I want this to be down further too. So you can really just kind of manipulate it as you go. And once I've got that one, I think I'm gonna make one over here. Maybe this one's almost like flying at my ghost, like it's really gonna scare my ghost. So it came out, but maybe it took a U-turn and it's gonna go and scare my ghost over here. So again, I'm gonna start with my little bat ears and a little bit of a pointy body. This one's not gonna be quite as big. And I'm gonna do, this one's gonna be at an angle, so I'm not gonna have both distinct wings like that. So maybe I'm gonna go something like this, and maybe this one goes like that. And then maybe you can't see all of this one over here, so maybe this one's just gonna be like a little sliver. You can't really see this one over here. And then maybe this one's gonna have these 1, 2, maybe this one's only got 3 of those things, and I'm just gonna color it in. And then I got one little tiny one I'm gonna have coming out of my pumpkin, and then I'm gonna put some black little accents for them. So again, I'm gonna have his little bat ears, maybe something like this, and size proportion, you just have fun with whatever you want. Maybe you want this one to be way huger than that one. It's all relative to how, whatever kind of bat imagination you have right now. And then I'm gonna have this this wing, maybe something like that, and like that, and making sure I've got my edges the way that I want. This one's gonna maybe hide over underneath the pumpkin lid a little bit. And then maybe I've got 1, 2, 3. Sorry. My Sesame Street mind plays tricks on me every now and again. And then I've got something like that. And then I'm just gonna put a tiny bit of black paint on my brush and just do little accents. So I'm gonna just maybe, like, there's a shadow underneath here, and maybe I can use this to identify these, I don't even know what they're called, the little connector pieces on the inside of the wing, the little cartilage stuff, the webs. I don't know what that's called, but the stuff on the inside of the bat wings. I assume it's got to be some kind of little cartilage stuff, but you know, I don't always know the technical things that I'm painting. There we go. So just little accents, little black accents in his ears, on the inside of those wings. And then we are going to be using our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your adorable bat wings on here, you can get your medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we are finishing our pumpkin. So this is where we're gonna be putting our final highlights on it and any little tweaking that we think that we need to do. So I'm gonna use my medium brush. The colors I'm using are white, yellow, orange, and if I need to, I'll use a little brown or a little bit of black. So if I need to, every color on my palette. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with a little bit of white and yellow. I really want this to have some nice highlights up on the top and on part of the side of the pumpkin. So my thought process when I'm doing this is I have highlights in two specific areas. One is from the moon, so I'm going to have some highlights over on the top edge of my pumpkin lid and probably a little bit over here, but it might be the highlight on this right side might be kind of interfered by the ghost. So, but definitely some highlights up there. And then on the part of the pumpkin that sticks out the most. So if the pumpkin is going to be round, your brightest highlight is going to be the part that sticks out the most. So for me, it's going to be right around here. And it's also going to be a little bit up from the edge of my lid. So somewhere in through this vicinity is where I'm going to have the lightest area on the pumpkin. So I'm going to start with some white and yellow, and I'm not using a lot of paint because I want to be able to manipulate this paint or add to this paint as I go. And if I use too much paint, it's going to stay wet, and I'm not going to be able to control if I want to darken it or lighten it. So I'm just using a little bit of paint on my brush at a time. I know I want this to really get lighter over on this edge, so I'm going to add just a touch more white onto my brush, and I'm really just going to kind of bring it into the intensity, the brightness that I want to, and then just fade it into that more orangey area. So you can, again, overlap it a little bit if you overlap it into the orange if you want to. You could even put a bright line on that top edge to make it read as that moon is really illuminating it. You could even put a little bit of a highlight on the side of your stem. So just know that you can really add those bright tweaks wherever you want them on the entire pumpkin. So I do want to have my lighter spots in through here, probably a little bit darker as, whoops, almost just lost my brush there. A little bit darker as it goes over here. So I still want to highlight, but maybe it's a little bit less intense than these ones in through here. And then I'm just going to kind of rub it in as it's drying. And if it dries too fast on you, just add a little bit of orange and yellow back to it, and that way you can get it to blend in with the surrounding colors. And just know acrylic is great because you can just paint over it. So if you do something that you don't like, don't worry, just let it dry, and you can add your little tweaks of adjustments, color adjustments after it dries. And I'm going to just add a touch more lightness in through here just to make sure that it reads as a round type object. And then I'm going to do the same thing over on the main area. So I'm going to start with some yellow and white. I definitely want a nice highlight over on that the little lip edge over here. So I'm adding some yellow and white. I need it a little more intense for my liking. So I just added a touch more white just so I can see it. There's no sense in putting it there if you can't see it. And then just, of course, using my fingers to blend it in. And then as I come over on this right hand side, this is going to be, however intense I want it to be. I'm probably not going to have it as light as right there. That'll probably remain my lightest spot, but I definitely want to have some lightness in through here. So orange, yellow, and white. I'm just kind of getting some paint on here right now, and I'll start to wiggle it around as it's drying. I definitely want this side to be a little bit darker than in through here, so more of the orange, less of the white as I come over onto this left-hand side here. But you know, maybe you have a little tiny highlight on this edge. Maybe there's a little bit of a highlight from the moon, just, you know, illuminating this little edge over here. You just do what you're feeling, you know, and if you make it too light, you can always come back with some darker tones in it. But this is just one of those processes that it might take you a couple more layers or a couple more minutes, or you know, however long to get these colors to adjust in the intensity that you want them to. But I am, you know, kind of staying in the center of each section and a little bit towards the top, and I'm just getting this color to blend in with its surrounding colors. And if I need to, again, I can add a little bit more orange or brown. So if I really went too light, I can bring back some of that brown. But the orange is really going to help to mute this as much as you want. And you can see I'm really just having some fun here, and it's working out the way that I want it to. So that's always a good sign. I just picked up a little bit more of the orange and brown to make sure that this section is not too stark in the middle area there. And then if you needed to dull down any of those center shadow areas, those little grooves, now is definitely the time to do that. So you could do it with orange and brown. You could do it, you know, with maybe even a little yellow if you wanted to. So you really, this is the step where you just start tweaking, and if there's anything more or less that you want to do to it, now's the time to do it. And I'm trying to make sure that the edge reads as, you know, a little bit poofier in the center of these areas, so it reads that it's got a little bit of a shadow in between those grooves. But again, just tweak it to whatever you feel it needs to be tweaked. And then once you've got these as three-dimensional as you want them, we have one little step to go, and it's going to be with our small brush. I just want to make sure I've got this area in through here as much as I want it to be. And we're going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this, you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush. Oh, see, as I say that, I put too much white paint. There we go. But it's so easily fixed and so easily corrected. All right, so we're going to get ready to go on to the final step. All right, so we are on to the final step. So this is the final step of any painting, which is to sign it. So I'm going to be using my small brush. I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right corner. I think I'm actually going to sign this one in the bottom left with some orange and yellow. I'm going to sign mine with my initials. You could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or whatever, a little symbol, whatever you want is totally fine by me. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a really cute and spooky Halloween inspired image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.